All right, welcome to this free Thursday evening talk and practice session. We'll be doing a little bit of practicing, a little bit of talking on the secrets of Tai Chi. Bum, 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 the secrets. So I plan to hang out with you for about 40 minutes tonight, just a short little class. And this is kicking off the next mini course in the Tai Chi Academy online. And what I was noticing as we finished, so we wrapped up our last course, which was on a 10 movement Tai Chi form that I developed called the five element Tai Chi. You can hear and learn all about that if you were to take that little course and where it's developed from and all of that stuff. Um, but as we finished that, I noticed that uh, between the live meetings that we had online monthly and the online archive of stuff, I was still feeling a disconnect between really getting that connection with people around their learning. So I wanted to experiment with this mini course of actually having it take place live. So this is kind of the kickoff to this little mini course that will be happening on some Thursday evenings and on some Sunday mornings. And since Linda's here, let me check. Can I start it at 10 if it's online? Can you come? Okay, then it's going to be Sundays at 10 and Thursdays at 6. And that'll all be archived in case you can't make it. But I wanted to put like an evening and a morning just to try to catch a weekday and a weekend to try to catch as many folks who might want to have a class that is concurrent and to do a little practice together. Question, Fiona. You're muted though. You have to unmute.
So the when Sundays and Thursdays, are there repeats or sequential so that
It's
you
going
can?
to be sequential, but we're learning a very short form. So you won't, if you miss a class, you won't feel too far behind. It'll all be pretty simple. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, that's part of the inspiration for this class is kicking off that next little mini course in the Tai Chi Academy Online, and it's a live course. And in a couple of sessions, I'm going to do a course that's called Tai Chi for Beginners, which will be like my big net to try to bring in as many people who could benefit. Um, but when I think about what inspires me, it's always the most esoterical stuff. So you get this talk and this upcoming mini course called Tai Chi Secrets. Hi, Ka. Welcome. Glad to have you here. So, what is this about? As you know, the theoretical is going to be brief because we're going to do some practice and then I have to reveal some secrets. But as you know, Tai Chi sort of came over to the US in around the 60s-ish. You know, there were some various transmissions. Um, and as it came around, it came with this old concept of inner and outer door disciples, inner and outer door disciples. So you can kind of think about it like the teachings that would take place when the door was open, where anyone could look in the Kung Fu school, say, oh, neat, they're doing Tai Chi. And then you close the door for black belt class or for invite only, and you give them the real stuff. And that comes from a couple of places. In the olden days, these were a village's um, like Department of Defense, these martial arts and these inner training arts. And so everybody kept their training secrets to themselves, just like, you know, I don't know, I'm kind of making this up, but like Mike Tyson wouldn't have videos of his actual training out when he's preparing for a fight because his opponent could look at that and go like, "Oh, I see how to take him down. He's training like this," right? So they would have an inner door training. Then as well in the schools of mysticism, which are also baked into the tradition of Tai Chi, um, some practices, if you do them without a mentor's direct guidance, can kind of mix you up on the inside. And others, if you speak about them on the street corner, people will just think you're really weird. And like in my Buddhist tradition, that was actually forbidden because they said it would cause those people to have bad karma from denigrating the Dharma in their mind. So in the tantric schools of Buddhism, you're not allowed to speak about some of the more far out stuff because you don't want people to, get the type of karma that keeps them away from these sacred teachings. I don't know if you believe in all that, but I'm just here to deliver the kind of historical background. Anyway, in the modern era, a lot of those rules of secrecy no longer apply in the same way. So because we have the internet and you can look up, what were the weirdest beliefs of Taoists, that's just at your fingertips. What my teachers taught me and what their teachers actually requested of them is that they explain these teachings with as much depth as possible so that as people gain access to them, they could put it into practice or they could understand the context of those teachings and not just have this flash in the pan sort of imagery or out of context work. So a lot of what my work has been for the last decade or something like that, kind of since my teacher passed from this planet, um, it's felt like kind of trying to create a database of context for these practices so that people who wanted to benefit them could benefit from them. And then people who got down the path and got confused could know kind of how to go find someone to help unconfuse them. Not necessarily me, but my job is kind of just lay it out there as much as I can and really create this welcoming environment. So, anyway, that's the idea that in the past there was this cloak of secrecy, and in the current era, as my teacher's teacher said, the epoch that we're in. This is tending to the mystical, but he said, in the epoch that we're in, the gates are open, and the time for that type of secrecy has passed. There's still in these inner traditions privacy and intimacy, but the time of secrecy is no longer present in the same way it was back then. So that's the idea. And then in Tai Chi, as it came over, we mostly inherited the outer door tradition, which is moving our hands through these groovy little patterns of the Tai Chi forms. And what's neat is that there's so much benefit in that that if you never took my course called Tai Chi Secrets starting today and this Sunday at 10 a.m. on the Tai Chi Academy online, oh, look, there's a link in the chat box to it. Wow, sign up now. If you never even did that, Harvard Medical School says you'd be training your balance and getting mild cardio and keeping your bones from degrading and all of this groovy stuff, right? Tai Chi is great even without all the secrets, but it's a little bit incomplete. Part of that is because you're supposed to, in the old way of doing things, you're supposed to learn the form, and then after you learn the form, your teacher would grant you the next level. A lot of the time what happens is people only stay long enough to learn three-quarters of the form, and then they're not around to get granted the next level. Or we have a number of kind of institutional hurdles that come from these previous eras where, the master's kind of scanning your spirit or something and deciding when they're going to trickle out the real goods. And why my teachers have encouraged me to actually reveal a lot of the deeper context is that unfortunately some of that deeper context has gotten lost over the eras. My teachers were in contact with different masters who said, please write this down, teach your students, because otherwise, you never know when the next war or environmental catastrophe is going to come. And if there's only one guy who still knows the whole tradition, that's a real problem. So we want, instead of one guy, we want 18 gals to know the whole thing. And that's why we find ourselves here in this class called Tai Chi Secrets. Okay, any feedback on there or commentary before we get into the three great secrets I shall reveal tonight? Okay, if you come up with any, you're welcome to use that chat function. But let's get started. So, secret number one, while you still have your notes out before we get up and practice, is sometimes short forms are better than long forms. This is your slogan. Sometimes short forms are better than long forms. Okay, what does this mean? Well, you may know if you've studied traditional Tai Chi in the Yang style, where these practices will be drawing from tonight come from. The mark of excellence is that you learn the 108 move long form, the long Yang style form. And that's really cool. And it has a lot of benefits. But one of the detriments is, well, one, some of your Western American students pop out before they get to move 53, and that's a bummer. And because it's hard. And so then, especially if we're trying to like do Tai Chi to benefit seniors, senior citizens, and stuff like that, retirees, like we can't be waiting around to get through 100 moves before they start getting the benefits. So um, we're going to have to get the benefits sooner. But as well, what two of my teachers said that the lineage teachings were for them, that the original Tai Chi was actually more about cultivating the energies of the individual movements or short sequences of movements than it was necessarily cultivating a preset extensive choreography. So, I hope I presented that in a balanced way. Preset extensive choreographies are groovy. I love them. I've spent a lot of my life learning them, but learning the energies and the structures of the individual moves and their combinations is actually closer to the essence that gave people the mastery to develop those long choreographies. So we're looking a little more toward how did somebody come up with those 108 moves rather than can I copy the 108 moves that they came up with? Okay, so with that secret in our pocket, let's learn a very short Tai Chi form. So when you're ready, come to standing. I'll be demonstrating standing, but any of these practices could be done seated if you had sprained your ankle. They can be done with your trekking poles in hand if you're concerned about your balance. So please modify the practices in the ways that make them work for your body. We're just going to run through this and we're going to do monkey see, monkey do style. Follow along as best you can. And then if you end up in the rest of the course or you watch this video back, it'll be on YouTube for a week. Then you could learn this and really kind of get it in depth. But for now, let's gloss through it and just enjoy ourselves. So first move is called pulling down the heavens. We're going to inhale and reach up toward the sky. And we're going to exhale and we're going to pull down toward the earth. Second move is called commence Tai Chi. Palms down, you float your hands up to shoulder height, and you float your hands all the way back down toward the earth. Then I'm mirroring you, so this should feel like looking in the mirror. You're going to take your left hand and do cloud hand. So you turn your waist, and the left hand comes across and floats up. And then you turn your waist, and it floats out in a big circle. Then the right hand's going to float up, turn the waist, and float out in a big circle. One more time with the left. And turn and float. As you turn now to your left, let the right toes turn in, the right hand float up toward your heart, and the left hand and foot scoop in. You're in a posture called embrace the moon, like you're holding the moon between your hands. Look left, step left, and roll a ball up and forward. Turn it over, pull it back and down. Take your right hand to your left wrist and squeeze your two hands forward. Let them open up naturally. Inhale, bring them both back and down. Exhale, push them both up and down. Turn back to the center, place your hands on a cloud, and float the cloud all the way down. Then we do it on the other side. So starting with your right hand, we're going to turn the waist and float the right hand up. Turn the waist and circle it out. Other side, turn the waist and float the left hand up. Turn the waist and circle it out. One more time. Float and turn. And as you turn to the right, turn that left toes in. Left hand to the heart, right hand and foot scoop in, embrace the moon. Look right, step right, and roll a ball up and forward. Pull it back and down toward your hip. Left hand to your wrist, squeeze both hands forward. Open up, pull back and down. Shift forward, push up and out. Back to center. Hands on the cloud and float the cloud down. Pulling down the heavens. Breathe in and breathe out. Rest for a moment. Notice how you feel. Savor any benefits you notice from that brief practice. Okay, so while I'm standing, you don't have to keep standing. Uh, I'll just talk about this little idea of short form. So we have within this form a sequence of four moves called the grand sequence: ward off, roll back, press, and push. This is one of the examples that my teacher, Sifu Steve, taught us as each individual move called Yao Jin, called waist training, which he taught us was kind of the original style of practicing Tai Chi. So you would practice this one move, ward off, and then ward off. And you can't quite do it without the roll back. So roll back and ward off and roll back. And then you have this sequence of moves that goes from ward off, roll back, press, and push. And so you have these two kind of options in the way that we were trained. You have the initial exercise, the individual exercises. Here's the exercise for push. It would just be coming back and down, pushing up and down. And then you have the short sequences where we would come back and then run through all four. Pong, Lu, Ji, Ah. Similarly, in this form, a great individual training that's often done is cloud hands. So we have at the beginning, this is a move called large cloud hands. If you've done Tai Chi before, you've probably seen medium cloud hands, but we're doing large cloud hands because in the last 25 years, I figured out it's much easier for people to learn. Um, but cloud hands is a great meditative movement, and it teaches people how to turn the waist in conjunction with moving the arms. So this is also a very classic Yao Jin exercise. Okay, bring it on back in. So that's secret number one. Sometimes short forms are better than long forms. Don't get me wrong, the long form in one of the classics by one of the Yang masters, they say like, oh, the Yang form is like a great river that flows on and on. And so if you can master that, it takes a half an hour at like a moderate speed, it becomes a moving meditation that has a cumulative effect as you reach that half hour, right? But as my teachers represented how their teachers might have been practicing, they might take two or three movements and spend that half hour doing them over and over and over. So these are two facets of how the training can be put together. And then ideally, you would take the ingraining that takes place of doing the two or three movements over and over, and then you would put that back into your long form. So as you did the long form, you're less likely to kind of check out and space out, but you're working those energetics, those structural components, those mental components that you've been taught every time that move push comes up, which is a lot of times in the 108 long form. um, you'd be locked in because you spent the time drilling it into your system. And yeah, Chris says, I reckon the Yang 24 is great. I love the Yang 24. I think that one takes 10 or 15 minutes to do. And it's really nice. It's basically all the moves of the long form without any repetitions, sort of like that. That's at least the 37 of Zheng Manqing. I think he nailed it. He got all the moves of the long form without any repetitions. And that came out to about 37. I think the 24 leaves out one or two things. But uh, anyway, so any questions, comments on that short form before we move on? Ginger.
Yeah, is it okay to, like, I'm used to doing cloud hands like you showed the second. Is it, do we have to do the bigger one? And I mean, how much freedom is there in doing it the way you kind of used to?
For tonight,
Well,
infinite freedom.
well, I don't know. I'm kind of used to teachers being kind of rigid, I think. So I'm just wondering where you are on that.
Yeah, if we were going to be getting all together in a park and like doing demonstrating for a World Tai Chi Day, then I would be more rigid. But, for these purposes, it's for you. And so, and part of my answer is because you have a little of experience too. So you get more freedom than someone who's a brand new beginner. For a brand new beginner, having options is confusing. Um, but for a person, you're a authorized Qigong instructor. So, you know, you know what to do. I could tell you, the big one is a little better for liver qi stagnation. The little one is a little better for cultivation and tonification purposes. And if you're teaching Tai Chi, I don't know if you teach Tai Chi or not, but the big one is actually a little easier to learn. So this short form, part of its development is because I want to teach people quick, get them flowing, and I've tested this out for about 4 months now, and it works pretty good. So I've always found that people just trip out on learning cloud hands. But when we do this, it's just moving your hand in a circle. But it still gives you those benefits, turning the waist and moving the liver chi and all that kind of cool stuff. So yeah, I love this question. And these are some of the secrets of Tai Chi. We're dropping secrets like every few minutes that ordinary it took me like 30 years to get people to tell me this stuff that like, oh yeah, the rules are different for advanced students versus beginners. Really? I went 15 years thinking there was one set of rules that I was eventually going to find the book for, you know, and turns out the people who wrote those books were actually misled, they're so really fun. Another little secret that's dropped in there, not one of our three, is that you should practice your moves on both sides. So this one is also, as I was taught, you're supposed to finish learning the entire form and then your teacher sends you home and tells you to figure it out mirror image. That's how it went for me. Um, and this is mentioned in our last course on the 10 move 5 element Tai Chi, um, but I didn't have time to go into it. So I wanted to mention that here. This course is partially for some of the folks who took that last course. And then I wanted to start to give you some of, if you had learned that whole form, here's what you're supposed to do with it now. This is if we were, if you were coming to a weekly class or something like that, we would then pod you off into the intermediate group and we'd start going, okay, now you're not learning a new thing. Here's what to do with the thing that you've learned. Okay, Robert, did you have something to add or ask?
I was just wondering about it in the energetics of where we have our palm facing open versus our back of our palm, the two different possibilities of the cloud hand.
Yeah, so in Qigong theory, these postures tend to be more tonifying and gathering. These postures tend to be more expressive. So as I'm coming here, this one would be a little more dispersive, harmonizing, or radiating, depending on how you used your intent. This one is a little more contained. Yeah. So you know that in the Chen style Tai Chi, we practice cloud hands with the palms out. Whereas in most systems of the Yang style Tai Chi, we practice them with the palms in. So, and they each have their own feel, but they're both legal. They're both legal. Okay, you ready for the next one? Okay, the next secret, it's not too big a secret, but I'm going to lay it on you anyway, is connecting breathing and movement, connecting the breathing and the movement. So I give you this tonight as a secret because my first Tai Chi teacher and lineage that I studied with, they wouldn't teach you the breathing until you had finished the form, which to me, I had already had some Qigong training. And so that was totally loco to me. I was like, what are you kidding me right now? But again, I've learned a bit of perspective in those past years that have gone by since then. And yeah, how many years is that? That's quite a few. Um, so one reason for that is that some traditions don't want you tripping out on the breath while you're learning the movements because people tend to, hold their breath or make their breath rough while they're thinking about what move comes next, or they can't breathe as slowly as the teacher, and so they're getting all tripped out. And according to Qigong and yogic theories, that can actually make your energy body more stressed out instead of more relaxed. So, in many lineages, they hold off on the breathing until you've learned the whole form, and then they slowly introduce it to you. I'm going to teach you the principles. And because we have a form that only takes 2 minutes on each side, you are allowed to learn the breathing tonight because I'm sure you won't mess yourself all up. So, um, some schools have, some schools of Tai Chi have very specific, okay, on this move, breathe out, on this move, breathe in, on this move, breathe out, on this move, breathe in, and it's pretty great. But then once upon a time, somebody taught me the principle that underlies all those specifics. And it goes like this: movements that are coming toward you tend to be inhales, movements that are going away from you tend to be exhales, movements that are rising tend to be inhales, movements that are sinking tend to be exhales. And I say tend to be because not always so. And then there are some where you have to decide, right? So a great example from our last form, it's not in this form as you could see, is the golden rooster stands on one leg, right? So as I was taught the breathing for this, oftentimes you inhale as you come up because there's a rising force with that inhale. And it has to do with these microcosmic orbit things and stuff like that. But the knee and the hand are also somewhat moving away from the body. And so you're also allowed to exhale as you do this. What eventually happens is that the deeper rule underlying these ones is that when you want to emit energy in traditional Chinese Qigong, you exhale. And when you want to gather energy, you inhale. And in Tai Chi, that's because Tai Chi is a martial art, that's modeled by what you're doing to your imaginary opponent. So in this first move, this is a move that's about throwing a person with this pillowy body structure, right? They came running at you and you went, whoa, and you just trampolined them off into smithereens, right? So while you do that, you breathe out. And then another person comes in and you don't want to trampoline them. You want to sort of guide them that way. And so you inhale and you guide them that way, right? Then the next, they didn't quite go, so you're going to squeeze them off and you go, and you breathe them out. So the breath is linked to what you think you're doing with the movement. But, that's a little high order. So we bring it back to when the hands move away, you breathe out. When the hands move in, you breathe in. And then, even further down, when you're just learning the form, do what I tell you. You don't got to think about any of that stuff. Just follow Sifu's rules. So let's go through our many form again, and we're going to add our breathing. Take your standing position, or again, seated if you need to, next to the countertop if necessary for balance, modify to your needs. And if you sign up for that course, there's a lot of time to ask me about modifications or even use the little chat function in the online software. So here we go. Gathering the universe or pulling down heavens. We inhale and reach up, and we exhale and float down. Okay, here's one where we inhale as we rise. Commence Tai Chi. The hands float to shoulder height. We exhale as we sink. Now, left hand, cloud hands. We inhale as we rise. And we exhale as it moves away from the body and sinks. Right hand takes over. Inhale as it rises. Exhale moves away from the body and sinks. One more time. Left. And turn. And as I turn to my left, the right toes turn in. Left hand to the heart, right hand and foot. I'm sorry, right hand to the heart, left hand and foot come in. That's an inhale. Step out, and now you're ready to exhale as you roll the ball. Inhale as you pull it back. Right hand to left wrist, squeeze it forward. Open the palms, inhale as you draw in. And exhale as you push out. Inhale, turn back to the center, hands on the cloud. And here it is again. Exhale as you sink. Other side, start with the right. Inhale as you rise. Exhale as you float out and sink. Left hand, inhale as you rise. Exhale as you float out and sink. One more time. And exhale. As you go, turn those left toes in. Left hand to the heart for reals this time. Right hand and foot come in. That's an inhale. Step back out. Exhale and roll the ball. Inhale and pull it back. Left hand to right wrist. Squeeze it forward. Yield back and down with two hands. Push up and out. Here's the exhale. Inhale back to center. Hands on the cloud. Exhale, float it down. And pulling down the heavens. Inhale, reach up. And exhale all the way down. And relax. All right, let's bring it back in. We're going to do the form one more time tonight, but we got to give you one more secret to use with it. So, any questions or comments on that one? How did it feel? Did the breathing make it more complicated, more fun, more energy groovy? It actually made it more groovy for me, even though I was blabbing while breathing. I ended the form that time and I was like, wow, this is okay. Might just be cumulative now that we've done it twice. Robert, what do you say?
Adds a little bit of rhythm to your movement and a little pace so you can kind of meter a bit and get a little bit of flow.
Yeah, good. And Rory says felt pretty natural. Well, of course, you've got a lot of Tai Chi experience in there too. So that's nice. But we got to think as well, if we put ourselves in the mind of a raw beginner, why they might keep that secret, right? I actually noticed while I was telling you that I had to skip teaching you a couple breaths because there's too much to freaking do. So, um, I remember in some lineages that I studied Tai Chi, this was also one where you finished the form and then they sent you home, told you the basics of the breathing, and then you were supposed to go figure it out. So instead of in class, them going inhale, exhale, you go and figure out all the inhales and exhales, and you spend maybe a year for some folks plugging that in back to your form. So, in that way, it's not secret that somebody's hiding it from you, it's self secret. Like you couldn't have gotten it before, and you need to take the time to inculcate that into your life. Okay, easy one, right? Then eventually the breathing goes with the subtle energetics. And that is a little bit more secret. It's self-secret because you kind of have to, at least in the way I think of it nowadays, I don't want to tell you some belief system about the mystical force. I want you to experience it and then to be able to, well, okay, what's my favorite is that like people tell me like, "Oh, I experienced this." And I go like, "Well, there's 4,000 years of scriptures that say you would experience that. So that's pretty cool. You want to know what they think you should do next?" And I don't know, it just jazzes me out. Like right now, I work in a kind of physical rehab context. And but I'm the qigong guy and the yoga guy, for injuries rehab. And occasionally, like we'll be doing the qigong, and someone will come up afterward and go like, I felt this burning sensation right in my injury. Is that okay? And inside, I'm like, yeah, wow, all right. Because that's like textbook for what it's supposed to feel like when you've generated an abundance of this chi and it starts pushing through kind of the blockages and scar tissue where that energy is. So that's like in the text, literally textbook. But then also in my own experience clinically and as a qigong teacher and as a practitioner and acupuncture and all acupressure and all this stuff, when people experience that, I often hear them say, "Wow, things have started to get better fast." So this is just a personal share, I guess, but I really have come to like that. Instead of saying, if you practice enough, you'll feel heat opening in the 12 channels. And that's the mystic force. The universe is, the Tao has blah, blah, blah. Instead, I like people to come like, dude, is it okay if I feel burning inside? And I go like, yes, that is okay. That is more than okay, my friend. Anyway, how'd I get off on that? Oh, because the breathing relates to the movement of subtle energy. So we'll go into that a little more in the upcoming mini course. But for now, the what do you call that? Prerequisite would be to master the rhythmic breathing within the form. So you can see it's not always a nefarious plot that they're keeping this stuff secret. It's more that, well, you have to learn the form before you can put the breathing in it. You have to get the breathing natural before you can do the subtle energy that goes with the breathing, right? So it's this staged uh, personal development. All right, last one. So we're at 40 minutes, and I told myself that's how long class was, but it's actually 45 minutes now. So I'm hoping you guys expected to be here for an hour. So the last one we'll call the moving center of gravity. The moving center of gravity. And in long form classes and retreats, I like to do an exercise where you try to put your center of gravity in these different traditional spots. One is the center in the head, one is the center of the heart, one's in the center of the belly, and you walk around the room from these three places. And it's really cool. I like to do it in retreat because we hear everybody's experience, but it's really neat because like putting the center of gravity in the heart sort of makes you feel like a Sufi as you walk around. You're just like, oh, Allah, oh, wow. What if we loved one another? This is great. And if you put the awareness in your head, some people get really sort of like spirited away, and other people get really thinky. And both of those things can happen with the center of gravity here. But in Tai Chi at level one that we're at, we intentionally put our center of gravity in the physical center of gravity down in the lower tummy. Yeah. So, um, we're going to try this with our form. And again, you'll see how you guys, I think, are all kind of experienced at this. So it may be quite natural to you. But usually, when I teach this to beginners or advanced beginners, your awareness rests in that center of gravity for a second, and then it goes back out to your hands because the mind's going, well, what are my hands supposed to do? And then it comes back to your center of gravity, and then it goes back out to your hands, and then it goes back, and then it goes off to the shopping list, and you really reel it back in. But I think you'll find as we practice this form from the center of gravity that it has even another tone to it. So let's do our one more repetition, third time's the charm, as the old secret traditions of Europe have taught us. Let's give it a try. So feet shoulder width apart. And I want you to just imagine, like you don't have to imagine your eyeballs are down here, although there are traditions of Taoism that have that visualization. But just imagine that you're experiencing the world from your lower tummy, if that makes sense. Kind of feel into. And so when you do your movements, the movement of your arms is sort of somehow coming from your lower tummy. Let's play with this and see how it feels. So we're going to draw down the heavens. We inhale up, and the awareness is rooted down in the lower tummy. We exhale down. Hey, awareness in the lower tummy, and we float the hands up and bring it down as if you're experiencing the whole thing from your belly. Left hand, turn the waist and float it up. Turn the waist and float it out. Right hand from the lower belly. And exhale. One more time, left from the lower belly. Turn those right toes in and float the right hand to the heart. Left hand and foot scoop, embrace the moon. Step back out and roll the ball from the lower belly. Pull it down from your center. Right hand to the wrist, squeeze the two hands forward. Open them up from the lower belly. Draw in and push out. Turn to the center and then float down. It's actually a move meant to help you return the awareness down to that lower belly. Other side, here we go. Right hand crosses and floats. Turn out and open. Left hand, cross and float. Turn out and open. One more with the right. Inhale it up. Exhale. Take those left toes and turn them in. Left hand to the heart. Right hand and foot scoop in. Embrace the moon. Step back out with the right. Roll the ball from your lower belly. Pull it back from the lower belly. Left hand to the wrist and squeeze forward. Open up and yield back. From that belly, push. Turn to the center, hands on the cloud. Float it down. And relax. Pulling down the heavens, inhale. Exhale. And relax. Okay, bring it on in. Did you master secret number 3? How did it go for you? ¿Cómo te fue? Groovy? Did you have to come back to the tummy? Yeah, so this is the training. It's a meditative training of straying and returning, straying and returning. And folks like Rory might remember in the Chen style Tai Chi, we have a bunch of different trainings to get you like coming from this place. So we do all these like 36 different silk reeling exercises. And then the whole idea is that you're supposed to be feeling your arm moving as if the tummy is turning and like sending the movement out to your arm. And at the same time, it's going down through your leg. So we have all of these detailed trainings about it. But the principle, the secret is drop the awareness to the center and come from the center. Then what's great about this, it's not only useful for practicing your ancient martial art from mystical roots so that you can feel neat about that, but if you gain that skill in your Tai Chi, when you're feeling flustered in life, right? You went to the DMV and you're up in these centers, and so you're feeling everybody's emotions. You could choose to drop it back down into your tummy, which is a more appropriate center, I find, to visit the Department of Motor Vehicles. um, and etc. Then the advanced trainings we start with just down here, but it's secrets night. So we'll let you know the advanced trainings are then to be able to shift into this center when appropriate, not just down here, but maybe you're giving somebody you love a big hug. Shift it, bring it up, and you can turn on the hug almost immediately instead of having to kind of wait to come out of your individualistic mindset of the lower tum tum. So let's see what's going on in this chat room. Yeah, so moving from that dantian all the time, that lower belly center, and yeah, it's a great practice. That's a traditional practice. So just try to walk around, and every time you can, boop, come on back, boop, down to that lower belly. In the some of the Indian tantric traditions, that area is called the svadhyaya, the seat of the self, the seat of the self. And the way I was taught is that that refers to this initial training, that if you want to sort of gain the capacity to come home to yourself, you start by practicing down here in its seat. And then the self can travel and play in all sorts of different realms. But if you learn to anchor it in your center, it's an amazing skill to have. Awesome. Thanks for saying so, Chris. Okay, let me see if I missed anything else. Felt like a string was attached from belly to hands. Perfect. That's exactly the type of thing that we want to experience. And different people will describe it different ways, but I think I get it. I think I get what you're saying, and that's precisely how it can feel. So, folks, we have had a fun time tonight. I'm assuming you did. I did. So thanks for being here to give me that opportunity. We've revealed a few ancient Tai Chi secrets in honor of this epoch that we live in, where the gates are open, and we must take advantage and preserve these sacred teachings in our own practice. If you'd like to take that course, mini course, I'll put the link in here one more time to my little landing page. If that doesn't work, you should have my email. You found your way to this class somehow, so you can contact me. Get yourself signed up. Some of you are already grandparented in there, so I'll see you there. And we'll start on Sunday at 10 Pacific. And then we're skipping Easter week. So that 5th and whatever it is, the 9th or something like that, skip those ones, give yourself a little break, and then we'll be back just for about a month total till this time in April. We'll go. Question, Virginia.
Yeah. Quick question. If I have friends who might be interested, would they be able to join even though they didn't take this introduction
Yeah.
evening?
So this introduction will go into my online portal
Okay.
later tonight or tomorrow morning. It'll also be up on my YouTube for people who missed this class just for a week, but it'll go into this upcoming course for perpetuity.
Okay.
Yeah, and so people could catch up that way, and then we'll kind of have a fresh start on Sunday anyway. So
Okay.
it won't be excessively cumulative. There will be cumulative elements, but not this weekend. Yeah.
And then if I want to take the course, because I like these secrets, it's really, I mean, it's just, I've done Tai Chi, but this is so enriching.
Yeah.
And I can't do all the ones you're going to record them, you said, right?
Yeah,
So,
they'll all be archived, so you can come live or you can watch it in your own time.
okay, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So nice to see you. Any other quick questions before we all go our separate ways? All right. Thank you for saying nice things in the chat box. I always love to hear if you had a good time. Hopefully, I'll see you Sunday or whenever. After that course is done, we're doing another cool one, which is called the Taiji form of dispersing energy, where we're going to learn a bit about the mysterious Fa Jin, not Fa Jun. He's very mysterious, but the mysterious Fa Jin, and learn to use this form to actually relieve tension from the body. So, if people can't make it into this one, maybe you'll get in that one or at least the free talk. All right. Have a lovely Thursday, and I'll see you again soon. Bye, all.